Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gehan Cooray. I'm an actor, classical baritone singer, and independent filmmaker based in Los Angeles. While I'm down here in Colombo, I'm delighted to be hosting Gehan Cooray's Meeting of the Minds for Daily Mirror Online. Daily Mirror, of course, is Sri Lanka's premier media house. On this show, I'll be discussing a variety of topics that are very close to my heart and very close to the hearts of all my guests. The topics range from music, drama, cinema, all the way through spirituality and religion, to philosophy, psychology, life issues, and everything else that accompanies these subjects. Today, my guest is the one and only Mr. Mano Chanmugam, who I think is an expert on all of those subjects. The challenge with him, ladies and gentlemen, is I don't really know where to begin due to the breadth and scope of his knowledge. So I think, Mano, let's go back to your youth when you were in the seminary. I think over the course of 6.5 years, almost 7 years, you studied theology and philosophy. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is rather a conundrum, even for me, because philosophy, of course, is the study of life, which many would say is a natural thing. And, of course, theology is the study of God, which, God is divine. So, Mano, how might you reconcile philosophy with theology?
Gehan, it's a very intricate question. And I knew, I had asked you earlier, and that's why I've got an aid memoir, because this is not a question that can be answered in simplicity. It's complex. But first of all, I want to say, reconciliation is only necessary if there's discord between the two. But in my understanding, in my humble understanding of philosophy, especially Aristotelian philosophy, it leads to strengthening the existence of a divine, or call it a superior force. Godhead is something that we in the Church of Christ, that is Catholic Church, has brought in. But in the general concept of philosophy, theology is a study of a superior existence that has caused certain things on earth. Right. And that is where cause and effect comes in. Now the effect, the consequence of cause and effect is what can be first explained by St. Thomas Aquinas, who was one of the most spiritually enlightened Christian saints, and he ate a lot, and he had a very big stomach.
I didn't know that.
And they said that in fact where he sat at his lunch or dinner, the table had a cutout, because otherwise his hands couldn't reach the food.
Oh my goodness.
So he had to come closer. So that's only the story, I don't know.
Right.
But his intellectual pursuits are really divine, because he is one who has said to us, nothing can come from nothing.
And what's the Latin for that?
The Latin for this is ex nihilo, nihil fit. And in fact, when I was at Enfield studying engineering, and my principal was lifting the college of the actual Enfield Polytechnic to a college of technology, he said, with your knowledge of Latin, Mano, I would like you to give us a motto. And when I thought of it, for education especially, I thought that would be the ideal. Ex nihilo, nihil fit. And that's what they put up. But now, the College of Technology has been raised to Middlesex University. And I don't know whether they have abandoned my
Latin motto.
But my motto stuck for over 30 years. So I don't know what it is now. But just to tell you that philosophy, therefore, should lead directly to the divine or to a superior force. Lord Buddha said that he was not God. And therefore, one must respect his teachings, because his teachings were always to do with the natural phenomena that took place in his time.
Yes.
But Christianity is different.
Yes.
Because it's elevated philosophy to come into the realms of theology in order to prove the existence of God. And that's what Thomas Aquinas did. But there have been those among the, I call rabble rousers, but people like, there was Bertrand Russell.
Oh, yes.
Who
you met, by the way.
Yes, I did have the fortune of meeting him.
Yes.
It might have been a misfortune, but I say fortune because I was able to talk to him about his own natural philosophical thought. Now, this man was an agnostic, and I realized that when I met him, I had to be respectful of his views, but I was prepared to say, I don't agree with you. And the first one was his book on marriage and morals, where he starts by saying marriage is legalized adultery.
Oh my goodness.
So you can see his ideas can bring misconception to a lot of minds, but it was to people who are agnostics or sometimes even completely against the existence of God, they have to justify all their philosophical thinking. And that's why I said I was glad to meet him. There was another one, of course, Darwin. Now, Darwin's ideas, again, with coming between natural philosophy and theology, was to establish a certain natural
cause and
effect that would improve from really a single cell to man. But he also got stuck because unfortunately he saw between the last of the animals, which are the apes, and humans, that beautiful God-given sort of ability to abstract
to
knowledge
have, yes.
Without, so when you say someone is good, you don't make it a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or climbing Adam's peak. You say goodness is something that mankind can distinguish between evil and good.
Right.
Right. So that is where we come to religious distinction in Christian theology, which is very important. And to make that more real, we have some very good Christian or Catholic authors whom in the seminary it's compulsory to read the books that enunciate their philosophies. And of them, I would say the most important is Graham Greene and Hilaire Belloc.
I love Hilaire Belloc.
Yes.
I mean, his poetry alone. Yes.
So they are the ones who inspired me during that time to associate philosophy with the theological thoughts, because they were very Christian in their thinking.
Yes.
Besides that, I have to slightly modify your statement when you said philosophy is the study of life. Psychology is the study of life. It's one of the subjects of philosophy, very important subject. The other most important is cosmology, where you study the universe, you study the extent of the universe, and it is unbelievable. The more I look at the study of the universe, the more I believe that there is a supreme force that has caused it, because it's so accurate. E to the n in our mathematics is defined as certain quantitative ability to quantify energy. And in God's creation, in every single galaxy, you see E to n working to perfection. Now the galaxies, I must say, are unbelievable, because there for instance, our own galaxy. At the beginning, we were told, long before all these people, that the Earth was the center of the universe, and that the sun revolved every 24 hours around it, and that the moon went every 28 days around it. These were the only two visual things we saw outside our Earth. Whereas today, with the Hubble telescope, all the limitations of visual amplification of the universe has been overridden by radio telescopes. Now, Hubble is the example of a radio telescope which has come into existence after I studied psychology and cosmology in the seminary, because I finished that in 1957. Hubble has come to in the 21st century more than even in the
20th.
Yes, end of the 20th. But that shows that through radio sounds, which are distant to such an extent that they can't be quantified, so they begin to talk of all kinds of ability to define. And they do it like this. Light travels at 182,000 feet per second. Mm-hmm. And when you try to quantify that into the time light takes from the sun to arrive here is 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it takes 8 minutes traveling at 182,000 feet per second. So it's so great that in our own galaxy, between the extremes of our planets that go around the sun,
in our solar system.
In our solar system is only that 90 minutes from the sun to us.
Right.
Sorry, 8 minutes.
8 minutes from the sun to Earth.
For the galaxy that we see, with all the ability of using the Hubble, we find that it takes 3.5 light years for light to travel from one end of our galaxy, which has millions of suns, to the other end. But that's only one galaxy. There are millions of galaxies. Mm-hmm. So that alone brings the whole idea of our knowledge to come to some divine perspective.
Yes.
None of this, especially when you say, nothing comes from nothing.
Yes. Nothing comes from nothing. Nothing ever could.
There we are. That is Gehan's absolute...
well, my musical spin on Mano's...
No, but tell me,
yes.
Nothing comes from what? From what's the...
Well, what I really liked, you explained it so beautifully, Mano, how, in your view, theology is almost the natural progression of philosophy, yes. And following philosophy to its utmost conclusion, yes. You feel brings the philosopher to theology. And I'm very glad that you reminded us, Mano, that Buddhism is a philosophy and not a religion. Yeah. Because I always remind people of this, because, you know, the way I explain it to people is, you know, Christianity and the Judeo-Christian faiths, even Islam, you know, you have commandments which we believe God has ordained. Whether you like it or not, you have to follow them. They're commandments, whereas Buddhism, being a philosophy, has precepts, which I think, Mano, are really more like recommendations, not commandments. Because a philosopher cannot command, a philosopher can yes. abstract, yes. as you said,
yes.
and perhaps even intuit certain things and arrive at certain conclusions. But, you know, I also love that you brought up Hilaire Belloc, right. Because one of my favorite poems by him, I think it's called The Microbe. And the last two lines, oh, let us never, never doubt what nobody is sure about. And, you know, Mano, for me, I think as a Christian who has also explored other belief systems such as Hinduism and even the ancient Greco-Roman religious systems which I've studied, what I find, Mano, is, for me, you know, God, the divine, is really something that you experience in your life. I think it's not always possible to scientifically quantify it. Would you agree?
I agree, fully.
Yes.
And I think in the case of Lord Buddha, I admire his ability to have come away from the other extreme of Hinduism, which is pantheism, where every single thing
is divine.
Was divine, and there was a godhead on earth and a godhead somewhere in a tree. And I'm not disregarding Hinduism. Hinduism evolved through several centuries, and it became a pantheistic involvement because man essentially has to look at something above him, and that can go from one extreme to the other, or remain in unitary perfection, like we say there's one God, because all, not two things can be almighty.
Yes.
They'll destroy each other,
Yes.
and therefore there will be no almighty.
Yes.
If you admit that Godhead is all perfect, all superior, and all powerful, there can only be one.
Totally.
So our one is definitely monotheism because of that, and it is therefore, of course, contradictory to a number of other religions.
Totally.
But religion is something from within you.
Absolutely, man.
And you can't come and tell, I want you to be a Catholic, or I want you to be a Buddhist, or I think that is left to the individual.
Yes.
It is up to us to magnify our knowledge to such an extent that we satisfy our own conscience.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, in case you're wondering what these terms mean, so, pantheism is the belief that God is in all things. Pan, of course, the Greek word means all. So God in all things is pantheism. The Judeo-Christian belief system, monotheism, meaning the belief in one God.
Yes.
Then, of course, there's polytheism, which is what the ancient Greeks and Romans believed in. Many gods, many deities.
Yes.
Mano, I hadn't thought of it that way before, that there can only be one almighty, because how can two beings be almighty?
They would have destroyed
each other by now.
Yes.
And very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, before we move on, something I wanted to touch on is that there's a misapprehension, I think, even among Christians, Mano, that Satan or the devil or Lucifer, whatever you call him, is the antithesis of God. A lot of people believe that God is the good being and Satan is the evil being, which is technically correct, but we do not believe that Satan or the devil or Lucifer is almighty. We believe that Satan / the devil is very much inferior to the almighty, and evil is always inferior to goodness. And I think even in our own lives, we've experienced many people who have schemed against us, slandered us, done all kinds of things against us. But Mano and I firmly believe that no evil shall prosper against us, because we believe that goodness will always win.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm glad you brought all this up. But you see, it's very hard to be able to answer your question, which is a very intricate, all-pervasive question, because you're bringing the whole Catholic history of religion and the history of science, which is something very a layman's idea. Science and the history of the church have mingled very closely to each other. And I think the progression of the Catholic Church through the Dark Ages was precisely because the popes were very open to knowledge, and they had to disperse of certain early ideas, like I said, when they said the earth was the center of the universe. And that came, but at that time there was people saying, oh, what is this so-called infallibility of the Pope, when they believed that the earth was the center? I said, no, that's what knowledge at the time perceived.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with their emanating Christian dogma, which is quite a different thing. They have never...
Right.
Our dogma of the church, and that's why I want to bring it, this idea of theology, also impinges on only moral issues, nothing to do with physical issues of geography or science.
Yes.
This is where we must say that, because that's very important.
And also, Mano, wouldn't you say it's fair to state that Darwin's theory of evolution is only a theory, ladies and gentlemen? It's not the fact of evolution, it's the scientific theory of evolution. Can
I tell you that you proved it perfectly, because when he tried to define how man had its ability to abstract, and he couldn't equate it to the ape. He brought it the missing link, and the word missing link implies that Darwin himself has negatively conceived a Godhead, because now the missing link is something far superior, because to bring abstraction in to humanity, whereas it didn't exist with the best of the apes,
Right.
he realized that even though he was an agnostic, he had to accept
Yes.
that there's something higher.
Right. And that missing link infers or intuits, even if it doesn't outright admit the existence of the hand of
infinite being. Or
an
something.
infinite being. Right.
We call it God, but I think that word God, unfortunately, is misunderstood.
Yes, yes.
And so we'll leave it at that. But now for that's why I said we have to realize church history comes into it. So do you want any more clarity for theology? In Christian philosophy, there's no dichotomy between theology or the existence of a divine and as I said, it's one part of philosophy. I said it's psychology that delves with the development of life.
Absolutely, Mano, because in fact, when I studied psychology at the University of Southern California, I did a double degree, one in dramatic arts, the other in psychology.
Right.
And I remember I asked one of my psychology professors, Professor, we are studying the mind as psychology students, but what about the soul, the study of the soul? And, I think it's interesting because in Greek, the word psyche, which is really, it comes from a Greek word, and I think to the Greek understanding, the mind and the soul were almost one, and I think we've now made a distinction between the mind and the soul, and then of course as Christians we make a further distinction between the soul and the spirit, which is something that even most Christians aren't aware of, so I guess when you get to the point where you're discussing the soul versus the spirit and so on, we're firmly in the realm of theology, not philosophy and psychology.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to tell you that in my study of I did in the end my nuclear engineering, but during my mechanical engineering period at Enfield, we had electricity as one of the studies, and electricity is one of the most abstract. It's even more abstract than metaphysics can be, when you can't explain to a little child how with a switch there you can bring a bright light like that to come on. And when Mr. Bates was my professor of electricity, and if ever he said at the end of a class he gave 15 minutes of questions, and I opened my mouth, he said, "My God, it's Mano Chanmugam again." And I cannot answer his unbelievable depth to which he goes to find out how he can explain electricity. So I said, I'll call it one of the mysteries of faith. Which is true.
Not a mystery of life, a mystery of faith.
They can't describe light is an electromagnetic waveform.
Right.
Electricity and magnetism are again untouchable, except when you get electrocuted,
right,
and then you die. So how do you explain that without getting electrocuted, that wire goes somewhere and the light comes on?
Right.
You can't. Waveforms,
yes,
any form, whether it's a waveform in that sense or a vibratory form, you don't know, because if you touch a wire, nothing moves.
Right, right.
So that's why you can't explain these things.
Yes.
So lots of it you have to accept
as a mystery. Quite right.
So is that okay?
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, Mano Chanmugam is the Sri Lankan representative for the Associated Boards of the Royal Schools of Music, UK, and he has held that post for 2 decades now. I really want to ask you, Mano, what do you think makes a great singer? What constitutes a great voice, in your expert opinion?
Again, it's only my personal, humble view, because you're a musician, you're a singer. I would say a great voice is one that emanates from the depths of your lungs, which is almost touching your diaphragm, and above all, the overtones must come out with melodious interludes in that voice,
Yes.
so that it then the singer can produce this in moderation, never too loud,
Right.
never too soft,
Right.
but the sound to be heard. So that's as far as the voice at that goes. But for the fine singing, there's a much more thing. It is when the listener is able to comprehend every single vowel, every single syllable, and also to be, whatever language,
Right.
that language must be very clearly disseminated so
Yes.
that the listener can understand it in his own language, and also more, but with the expressive, actually it should be the motion of the singer can deliver expressive ability to that singing, to give it more beauty. No?
Beauty, and you know, Mano, the reason I asked you this question after our last discussion was because you mentioned the word vibrations.
Yes.
You know, because singing, you know, vocal music is all about the vibrations.
Yes.
And you know, ladies and gentlemen, Mano is so sharp. Sometimes he'll listen to a singer and he'll say, Gehan, you know, so and so's vibrato is more like a tremolo. You know, and I must say, you know, his compliments towards me, you know, of my singing, those are among the compliments that I hold dearest to my heart, Mano, because you're such an expert. And when you say something, I know you mean it. And I think he's absolutely right, ladies and gentlemen, about the importance of not only the vocal production, but the diction, the enunciation. Yes. If you're singing in Italian, Latin, French, you know, unless you can pronounce these languages authentically, you know... You've lost the plot.
Your communication is gone. If the listener can't understand you,
yes,
the whole purpose of singing is lost.
And I think that's an excellent point, ladies and gentlemen. I think any young singers listening to this, they should realize that you're not singing for yourself. You're singing for the benefit of the listener, the audience, whoever it is. And unless you're communicating something to them, not just through the sounds you make, it doesn't matter how perfect your pitch is, how resonant your vocal tones are, if the words aren't clear, and if you don't understand what you're singing, whether it's Latin or English or Sinhalese or French or German, the audience the listener is not going to enjoy it, because they can tell when you don't understand
yes.
what it is you're saying
yes.
and singing.
Yes.
And I think you know, anyone taking the ABRSM exams should, if you're a singer, please pay attention to your diction, take French lessons, Italian lessons. I think they're readily available here in Colombo and elsewhere in Sri Lanka if you look for them. And perhaps my final question, Mano, is if there's anything you would like to leave our young viewers with in terms of any advice or recommendations when it comes to taking the exams.
Yes, I do have. For me, the whole purpose of an exam is an assessment of your musicianship. Therefore, first of all, young children who do our ABRSM exams must realize how fortunate they are that their parents have got the foresight to bring them into music and spend for them,
yes.
because it's expensive.
Yes.
And this fortune is far above thousands and thousands of children who haven't got that advantage. And therefore, to cherish this advantage, they must be able to say, I will study my music to perfection, to be able to get credits and more and better to get a distinction in your music.
Yes.
Okay?
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, it's worth mentioning that Mano Chanmugam is almost 90 years old. He'll be 90 years old this November 2021. And yet, as you can see, his mental acuity, his sharpness of mind, it's just exemplary. I mean, I'm 33 years old. I don't think I'm as sharp as Mano is.
Thank you.
So I think he's truly an example to all of us. I hope each and every one of you watching this will be inspired by him and realize that knowledge is truly power, and your true wealth lies in the knowledge that you amass over the course of your life. Mano has done that across 9 decades and still going. So please aspire to be like Mano Chanmugam, and thank you from the bottom of my heart, Uncle Mano.
Oh, thank you, Gehan, and thank you for bringing me in.
Of course.
And thank you for your compliments.
Yes.
And I think keep your erudition going, because it's always perfect for your singing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you,
you.
Mano.
Thank you.